on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. The God's with the king, no matter you're just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.
I don't have a mark on my face, and I upset Sonny Liston, and I just turned 22 years old. I must be the greatest. I told the world, I talk to God every day. The God's with the king, no matter you're just the same. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world. I shook up the world.
I said, can I be a legend? Search your soul and answer me this question. Do you think I have what it takes to be great, but still be humble and learn from my mistakes? Shit.
Good evening and welcome to another episode of This Just In. Of course, we have another action-packed episode ready to go for you. So thank you so much for joining us right here on YouTube, our new home. I'm Marsha Boyce, of course, Weston Marvel. And tonight we have another special guest for you, ESPN college basketball analyst and basketball coach, Richie Schueler. Richie, thank you so much for joining us.
Glad to be here. I'm just disappointed we're not at Bubba's. Come on, man.
When you soon enough, you'll get a chance to join us at Bubba's.
Okay, good. Great to be here, though, for real.
So, Richie, I'm just going to jump right into it. And as we often do here, I will take, license, host's license, and ask that very first. So we're going to talk first about college sports. And, we're seeing that in the U.S., football has returned essentially across the board now. What are your feelings on that? Things are still a bit iffy in terms of COVID numbers and increasing cases, increasing deaths, and so forth. On campuses, a lot of courses are online only, but yet we have, college sport, particularly football, returning.
Yeah, honestly, when they first started announcing that they were going to give it a try back in, I guess, August, when it started to become more realistic that this was going to happen, I wasn't too excited about it because we've seen the spread of it so badly here, really, in the United States. And with colleges, you got to think about it, especially if it's traditional classes. And you're talking about online courses, and most of them, or a lot of schools are doing that. If not, they're doing a hybrid. But there are many schools who are strictly on campus. And so, man, you could easily spread from one campus to the next. And we've seen a lot of programs
still having parties and all of the fresher events and that kind of stuff.
They say college kids are going to college, right? Like they're still having a good time, and they're in clusters. And we saw some SEC schools. I think it was Clemson and Alabama and some others that COVID went through their football program. We're not here.
I think particularly LSU.
LSU as well. Okay.
Yeah.
And maybe we're not hearing about it as much as we did early on. So those are good signs. I just hope that if this continues and everything seems to be okay, kids are getting tested, it's not spreading, I'm all about keeping college football. I just hope as it gets colder, is it going to maintain that way? Is it going to stay that way? Because as it gets colder, people tend to get sicker.
Yeah,
right?
Flu season.
Side together. You don't have that problem on the island, but out here it's going to snow a little bit and people are going to stay indoors. So that's the stuff that worries me. I'm really excited that they're playing, and I'm excited they're finding ways to play, and some leagues are going to get in late, but at least they're going to get in. I'm excited about that. I just hope that they can finish out the year. I just, hoping and praying that's the case.
We've seen the Big Ten reverse course of their initial decision not to play. So as you were mentioning, some leagues have opted still not to play. What do you think the Pac-12's decision is going to be in light of what's going on right now?
It sounds like the Pac-12 is going to play, and they're going to start in late October is what I'm reading is most likely going to happen. Here's the thing about the Pac-12, and this is the game changer, because just maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, they announced daily testing for all their athletes in the Pac-12. That's huge. There's 32, 33 conferences for most sports across the United States in college athletics. Now, football, not every school has football, so it's a lot less. I don't know what that number is. But most conferences can't afford to do what the Pac-12 is doing. Pac-12 has the financial resources to test kids. That's an expensive task. But
Yeah.
I think that's a total game changer for all sports, not just college football, but all sports. But that makes me feel really good about college football in the Pac-12. I was having a hard time with it early on because here in the West Coast of the United States, where I live, where the Pac-12 is at, COVID has not been friendly in California and in Washington and different areas, a lot of Pac-12 schools. But if you're doing daily testing and immediately when somebody tests positive, you make them quarantine for X amount of time and they can't be around the team, I feel a lot better about the safety of college athletics in that standpoint.
Now, I'm glad you brought up safety because we already have this dynamic of, is it that the NCAA is sacrificing, quote unquote, the lives of athletes for the sake of making money? And that is a conversation that is ongoing.
Well, it's, that's always the big question everybody has, right? I think it's deeper than that, though. I mean, think about this. March Madness. Let's talk about basketball, college basketball last year. It was towards the end of the basketball season. So no matter what had happened, even though they canceled, there was no champion crowned for most conferences, or at least half of them probably, and definitely not the national championship. Nobody was able to use that as a redshirt year. Now, you go into sports like spring sports in the United States, like baseball, softball, so on and so forth, lacrosse, they didn't even have a season. So the NCAA is saying, okay, you didn't use that year, so we'll give you an extra year more than likely to finish your 4 years of eligibility. It used to be you have 5 years to play 4 seasons. Now it's looking like they're going to have 6 seasons to play 4 years for sports like that. So when you take it to football, it's kind of like a big mess if they start football and then halfway in they say, all right, we're canceling the season. Now the NCAA has some really difficult decisions to make. Are they going to be able to let them use that as a redshirt year? Or are they going to, just say, hey, look, you used a year of eligibility because you played X amount of games? I think the same thing's going to happen in basketball. It's a winter sport when things are really, it's scary because it's cold and people get sicker then. Also, understand that college football, like the NCAA, doesn't make income off of bowl games, I don't believe. I think those are privately funded bowl games, like the Chick-fil-A bowl game or Bubba's National Bowl game, right? You should make that. But when it comes to college basketball, I mean, the NCAA tournament brings in like $380 million, which funds 99% of all college athletic programs. So the NCAA really can't afford to miss another NCAA tournament because they're already hurting because of last year's miss. That TV money didn't come in. So if college basketball, the NCAA tournament doesn't happen, all sports suffer. So are they making money for their own pockets, or are they making money because they want people to still have the opportunity to play college athletics? That's the big question. I tend to think that, yes, the NCAA is certainly, they're making money. The leaders are making income, but I think they're in it for the right reasons. I know Justin hates the NCAA, but I personally think
hate is such a strong word, but yeah.
highly dislike. I think they're in it for the right reasons. I mean, what would we do if we didn't have the NCAA? We wouldn't have college athletics, which we always talk about here in the United States.
So I'm glad you brought it to basketball. I'm not hearing a lot, but you're obviously on the ground where I am not. What are you hearing about college basketball? What will the season look like? When is it due to start? Those sorts of, and what are the protocols going to look like for that upcoming season?
Well, it's going to be fluid. Like, they made a decision last week, I think it was last Thursday, on what the future of this college basketball season is going to look like. They made some decisions, but they made it very clear. This is fluid. Things may change. Don't set this in stone because we don't know how COVID's going to what's going to happen with COVID. Right now, they're saying instead of it being November 7th or 8th like it normally or usually has been lately, the start date is the day before Thanksgiving now, which is November 25th. So they pushed it back. So I got asked to do a game on November 13th. And I emailed the producer yesterday. I said, dude, I know you're asking me to do this game, but the NCAA says we can't do this game. So, don't even talk about it. Let's talk about a game we can do. What's the point? But, no exhibitions or scrimmages beforehand. And the reason they chose that date is because Dan Gavitt, he's the NCAA Senior Vice President of basketball. He says that 76% of Division I campuses will have their general student body population off campus by that day, November 25th, because either the fall semester is finished completely because a lot of schools have started their semesters early so that they're done and they have a long extended Thanksgiving through holiday break, Christmas break, and whatnot. Or at least the other percentage of the schools have at least released their students for in-person instruction. So you kind of have like a 6-week season to get the college basketball season underway, where there's no other students on campus for most Division I institutions, and hopefully it keeps them a little safer and away from COVID.
You're hearing anything about changes to the format or anything like that?
Well, they've talked a lot about, as far as like the NCAA tournament and things.
Yeah.
Or just before you even get to that, they've maximized the number of games. You're allowed like 24, 25 games instead of what it was closer to 30 before. Minimum number of games is down to 13, which is reduced by 50%. It used to have to be 26. They're recommending a handful of non-conference games, 4 to be exact. Can't practice until October 14th, I believe is what it was, which is you're allowed 30 days of practice within a 42-day span before games start. But the big thing, I think you're talking about the tournament, they're still planning the 68-team tournament, and they're still planning on having 14 sites in March and April. What they're doing is they're calling it potentially bubbling, just like they are with the NBA tournament, or what they're calling controlled environments. I don't know. It's not a complete bubble, maybe, but
it's like a loose.
Yeah, so at the beginning of the season, the Thanksgiving tournaments, the Christmas tournaments, the holiday events, are they still going to happen? They're talking about bringing the Maui Classic from Hawaii down to Orlando, Florida, or somewhere in Miami or somewhere in Florida, to keep it more controlled. And that's another can of worms because Hawaii has a 14-day quarantine the moment you land. So University of Hawaii is in big trouble right now. They got to figure that out until they get some sort of exception.
With that in mind, what do you think the protocols will be for, on your end, the media coverage?
Well, the game I got offered to do November 13th, which isn't going to happen. They're talking about everything online, so we won't be at the game. We won't even be in a studio. Normally you're at the game, right? I got the best seat in the house, man. Mid-court, right there across the benches. Nobody has a better seat than I do. It's awesome. But then they have games where they put you in a studio and you just pretend like you're on that sideline, but you're in a studio watching the games on 2 or 3 different camera angles and you're calling the game. They won't even do that because of safety concerns. Like, I don't want to be in a, if you might have COVID, one of you, I don't want to be in a studio with you. So now they're doing it. They're saying, I got an email. It's like, this is all the directions. So if you're going to do this game, here's what you have to have: a strong internet connection, so many megabytes per second, blah, blah, blah. And all this, headset equipment. And they're like, do you have all this stuff? If not, we'll mail it to you. So that game's not going to happen, but hopefully there'll be some other games in the future that'll be able to do that. But I would expect, because some leagues won't even play conference games in college. For example, the Ivy League announced a month or 2 ago they weren't even going to start any athletics until January. Yeah. So it's going to be crazy how many games, if everything is okay with COVID in the spring semester, which is like January through May,
everything is going to be crushed. Yeah.
It's going to be insane. People are going to be fighting for TV time. So, but I don't think I only do college basketball, and I don't think there's going to be that many games. So I'm going to have a much smaller schedule than usual.
And then just to follow up on that, though, from a personal perspective for you, in terms of your game preparation then and having to call games under these conditions, how do you think that will impact your delivery?
Well, I can't change the way I prepare. For example, last year I had, for the Big West Conference tournament, which is mainly teams in California, I was going to call 4 games in one day, which is 8 teams to prepare for. And I had everything prepared, and then it got canceled the day of. On the way there, it got canceled. Same thing. I've got to prepare for every game as if it's going to happen, because when you get into the broadcast, you've got to know those players. You've got to know the tendencies of the team. You've got to know the background and the history of the coach, of each individual player on the team, and you want to give them their due diligence. Now, Marsha, you're probably talking like normally you go to practices. You go to practice the day before, the day of the game. I'm not going to be able to do that. So unless, they let me in the building and I just have to stay way over there with a mask. But it really helps to see that number, that player, what he can do in practice, or she, but I do mostly men's games. And it's just going to be very difficult. You're going to have to kind of probably watch more previous games or just do more research and then evaluate as you see them in action. It's going to be really different.
Okay, Marsha, I'm not sure if you're comfortable with me switching to the pros now. You don't have any more
Of
college
course.
questions,
Yes,
Marsha.
Richie can switch hats now. Take off his ESPN hat and put on his coaching hat.
I don't have one. I'm trying to find.
So yes,
I used to have it. I don't know.
that's what everyone is here waiting for, and especially Marsha and her beloved Boston Celtics. I want to ask you, in your coaching perspective, kind of break down what you've seen so far in this Miami-Boston series.
I love the Celtics. I mean, I love the Celtics. Mark, you're a Celtics.
Yay!
I love the Celtics.
Oh no!
Well, I really like Brad Stevens. I had gotten to know Brad Stevens a little bit when he was a college coach. He's a really good guy. He's got great. I mean, his players seem to all be high character players. I worked with Kemba Walker on a commercial shoot about 7 years ago. And he is like salt of the earth. He was maybe the nicest human being I talked to that entire month. Like he's just a great quality guy. And just all their players. There's no drama with their guys. I mean, Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart. You don't hear anything negative about these guys, so it's hard not to like them. But they've got to close, man. They've got to close. And yes, I know they did a little bit of that better the other day, but that's their biggest thing. I mean, they've blown 2 big leads in game 1 and game 2. Sounds like they had a kind of a come to Jesus meeting.
Or come to a Marcus Smart meeting, but whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, that's the way it was reported. And then, Coach Stevens, I guess, called the captains or the leaders into his room at 1 a.m. That's the report. Who knows what's true and what's not? And sounds like they really talked some things through. I think the addition of Gordon Hayward, even though he's not effective really from a statistical standpoint at this moment in time because he's been out for 5 weeks or whatever, I think that plays an impact because the players after the game were like, look, I mean, just having him out there, he does so many things right, that it just makes everything go smoothly on both ends of the floor. Statistics sometimes are a little bit overrated. Having that guy out there that does everything right certainly helps. But I mean, I'm a little worried for Miami right now because I think they have an extended break, right, until Wednesday, I think, each game, which is kind of different, right? But, they say Jimmy Butler might have to have off-season surgery, and he's fighting through some leg injury right now. I read that somewhere or heard that somewhere, listening to Sirius XM or something. And, hopefully he stays healthy because I really like Jimmy Butler too. So he seems like everything I've heard is a great guy. So anyway, I hope your Celtics can pull it out, Marcia, because I'm secretly rooting for them, but I guess it's not a secret anymore.
Yes, nobody wants in Miami Heat in the final. That's not going to be an exciting final. No.
Well, is it going to be Celtics versus Lakers? I mean, that's the big question. That's what the NBA wants. They want Celtics.
That's what we want. So then, keeping your coach hat on, you mentioned the Lakers. So the Lakers Nuggets series. Do you think the Nuggets can take the Lakers down to the wire, possibly force a Game 7?
Well, I'm not thinking too highly about that right now after going down 0-2. Man, I know I live in LA and everybody around here is a huge Lakers fan, but man, I felt bad for the Nuggets yesterday. I felt really bad for the Nuggets, man. That was a heartbreaker, man. And it looked like, I don't know if you rewind that last play, and Mason Plumlee's on Anthony Davis on the opposite wing, and he was expecting his teammate to switch on to him. Usually at the end of a possession, at the end of a game or whatever, you'll call what I used to call red, which means switch everything, all screens, all handoffs, anything. And I'm pretty sure that the Nuggets were running red, where they were trying to switch everything. And I don't know if it was miscommunication or the guy that he thought was supposed to switch on to Anthony Davis before he made that great three just didn't realize. I don't know. But it looked like Mason Plumlee thought he was going to switch and it left him open. And I'm not convinced that the Nuggets can come back now to being down 2-0. I mean, here's the thing. The Lakers they have 2 first-teamers on their roster, right? And they're top-heavy in the scoring in the playoffs. Like Anthony Davis is like 28 a game. LeBron's 25. Not even talking about blocks, rebounds, and assists because those guys do it all. They're just very top-heavy. The next guy's like 10 points per game. So, if one of those two guys was to go down with an injury, I'd feel a little better about the Nuggets maybe making a comeback, but they're down 0-2. It's going to be tough against two of the best players in the world.
Sorry to have to go back to this play, but I'm glad you brought it up. Because for me as a basketball person, I was a bit lost. That screen, as you said, it was clear that Mason Plumlee was expecting to switch everything. But for me, it didn't look like a situation. It didn't look like a screen. Like it just because it seemed like so much space between between Anthony Davis and LeBron James. So I was wondering, if you're a coach, would you have not expected Mason Plumlee to stick on to Anthony Davis because it just didn't look like a screen situation?
I don't think it was really a screen. I think what it was what you call some people call an interference screen.
Yeah.
Or different things like that. I don't know if I'm answering your question, Justin. Tell me if I'm not, but I'm willing to bet.
Yeah, you are.
Okay, I'm willing to bet that the Lakers knew that the Nuggets were going to switch everything. If it's something that they do all the time, plus it's something a lot of programs do anyway, a lot of franchises, a lot of teams switch everything anyway, they probably expected the switch to happen. And so it looked like whoever that was who was the player that did that, the Lakers player that set the interference screen or whatever it was.
LeBron.
Was that LeBron?
It was LeBron James.
Oh, he's a very smart player. He's a high IQ guy, man. So I'm sure what he was doing was trying to push his defender down so they couldn't switch off on Anthony Davis. That's what I'm guessing. I think they were prepared, and probably what LeBron did was by design. Like, I'm going to try to cause confusion here. I'm going to make it difficult so that my guy can't switch on to AD, who's about to take this three for the win. And then if that defender that was guarding LeBron was going to bite on it and switch, then he had the back door. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
He had the back door for a layup or a dunk. Could have been alley-oop to win it. Imagine how cool that would have been. It was designed for that option. So but LeBron's a very high IQ player, man. He is a very smart player. So that's my guess, man. I bet you they anticipated that.
Well, that answers it for me totally because, as I said, it wouldn't look like, as you said, like a normal screen. It seemed to be so much space, and yet Mason Plumlee just took right behind Jeremy Grant and LeBron James and forced Jokic, who was defending the inbounds, to have to go and jump at a contest. So I thought a coach in mind would be able to explain it better for me.
Well, hopefully I did. I don't know. I know.
You most definitely did.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm trying to think. That play. When you don't switch, usually most teams don't normally switch, and then you turn it on at the end of a game. And I have no idea. Maybe the Nuggets were switching all game, and I just wasn't paying close enough attention.
Yeah.
I have no idea. But if they weren't, and then they called that happens all the time, where somebody will call, the last couple possessions or last possession, switch everything. And then you're not used to doing it that often, and mistakes like that happen at the end of games all the time. That's frequent.
Yeah.
So
the time on the clock was very short too. So
man, was that just a great shot? It broke my heart, man, because
I mean,
Nuggets after that comeback.
I don't think you should put that on YouTube Live because your LA people will be watching. So I'm quite sure you don't really want to be putting that out there.
I've lived in LA 7 years, and this is the first time the Lakers have been the better team. It's been the Clippers for 6 of the 7 years. But here in LA, you couldn't tell any Laker fan that.
Of course not. Richie, I wanted to ask you as a coach, looking at how the bubble environment played out, how would you have liked to operate in that kind of environment? For example, would you see it as, fewer distractions for your players, or do you need that crowd to feed off of?
I think in the beginning they were loving it because it was kind of like it's kind of like when you play guys on the court, they're your enemies, but when you're all staying in the same hotel or same general area, you get to see all your guys that are your enemies on the court, but maybe you played against in college, or maybe they were your friend back in the day, or you know what I mean, or maybe you're friends anyway. But I think after 2-3 weeks of that, let alone a couple months, it would get really old. Don't you think you would get just kind of like cabin fever being in there all the time? And I think some people are probably secretly bringing in distractions. Look at Mr. House from the Houston Rockets. Who knows distraction was late at night, but it might have cost them the series as a result. He's a good player that got suspended the rest of the time. So, no, I would have hated the bubble after some time, but it is what it is. What can you do? I mean, if you want to continue playing, and I think it takes more mental toughness than it does physical toughness.
Okay.
When you look at some of the guys, they're checked out. I mean, I don't want to name names, but there's been some reports of guys in the media where it seemed like their head wasn't into it. And I think that they maybe were just checked out mentally because they just want to be out of there and with their friends and family back home. I think it'd be tough, man. And I think, whoever's going to win this series is going to be a combination of just being good and mentally tough. But look at the Bucks. Look how good they were. They got knocked out pretty early.
I don't tell that to Neil, who's off set, thankfully, because when they told him that the Bucks were going to lose to Miami, he looked at me all sort of crazy. But you and I, Richie, we understand basketball. Not everyone else, but you and I, Richie.
What does Neil, aka Snoop Dogg, know? Come on.
Well, I mean, he's a Lakers fan, so who really knows?
Oh, he's a Lakers fan? Oh.
Yes.
I'm surprised you did my mic.
Lakers fan.
Oh, he has to be professional on this show, so he's struggling behind offset right now.
That's good. That's good, man.
So, Richie, I'm going to put you on this spot then. Who do you have to win it all for this NBA season?
I think it's going to be the Lakers.
Okay.
I didn't think that until the Clippers went out, because I really thought it was going to come down between the Clippers and Lakers. I don't know if Boston or Miami can pull it off, unless, like I said, one of those two players, LeBron or Anthony Davis, goes out with an injury. I think it's going to be really hard to beat. They have a really good roster. The Lakers do. I think the Clippers have a better roster, to be honest with you. I think they have more depth. And the franchise has been a better franchise the last several years, but that didn't happen. So I'm not convinced they would have beat the Lakers, but I think they would have given them the best shot. I just don't think anybody's going to beat the Lakers, especially now that they're up 2-0 in the Nuggets. I had hope for the Nuggets, but I don't see it. I don't see it now, man. But anyway, it's going to be, if that happens, I mean, I don't think LeBron's ever going to get 6 championships. I'm not convinced he'll get 5. But to say he went to 3 franchises and won the championship at each place,
yeah,
pretty special. And you look at like his Cleveland team wasn't as talented as most NBA championship teams. I just think it's he's had a special career, that's for sure.
So then, last question, I guess. If he wins this title, where do you put him in the GOAT conversation? Where do you put him in grades?
I'm the absolute worst in this conversation, so I don't know if you, because I start questioning and everything, like, oh well, what about Wilt Chamberlain? And I will let me make a very 2 guys that never get talked about. Bill Russell, dude's got 11 rings, 11. That's crazy. And then one guy that I think is probably the best player of all time that gets no love, because he never was liked by the media, because he's not good with the media, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
Come on, though.
Oh, dear. Please don't start, Justin. That is Justin's spiel. He 100% says that all the time.
His stats are better than all of Michael Jordan's stats. Just about. Mostly better than all of LeBron's. His accomplishments are off the charts. Now, he did play 20 years, right? But come on, man. The dude's done it at every level. The dude should get. Yeah, go ahead.
Justin Marvel will never.
I'm going to talk to the producer to make sure that we have Richie Schueler back on the show every single week. I keep telling them the reason that we don't hear of the captain being mentioned, the greatest all time, is simply because the media didn't like him. If he was a media darling, I swear to you that we'd understand. As I keep saying, in stats, the numbers, the accomplishments are all better than Jordan. It's just that the media did not like this guy.
Media does everything. Like, media can make you look great.
Yep.
They can make you look horrible. I mean, look at Michael Jordan. Okay, the league was nowhere where it is right now as far as terms of popularity when Jordan came to the league in '84. Now, Magic and Bird kind of were. They were the media darlings, the 2 players that resurrected it, supposedly. And then Jordan came along, and look what he was doing his rookie year in '84. I mean, he was crazy. In his second or third year, he was averaging 37 a game. So obviously, Jordan's great, but he also got a major shoe deal, which made him off the charts world famous. He got in with Gatorade, did all these things, Wheaties, things that many athletes had not done before him. And if they had, he did it on a bigger scale. So is that just the media doing that? That helped him get to be as popular as he was, or did he really deserve all that? I don't know. But Kareem's numbers are better, and his how many championships does Kareem have?
6.
Okay, so if we're comparing championships to championships, okay, so Kareem is right there with Jordan. If you're looking at numbers, Kareem is way ahead of Jordan. It's just that most people can't relate to a 7-footer. When the three of us go on the basketball court and play around, we can relate a little bit more to Michael Jordan because he's a guard. Well, he was a guard. Sometimes he was a forward, but he was a guard. Like, we all can relate to Steph Curry. We can all jack threes and be short, right? So, like, nobody relates to a big 7-footer.
Especially a 7-footer who is practicing Muslim and preaching, certain situations that he contain. And it's very weird, the media. You heard the man Marsha, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, #1 of all time. You heard him.
We will note it down. Yes.
AKA Lou Alcindor.
Lou Alcindor, indeed correct.
I hope Neil's not too mad at me. I know I gave some love to Kareem. I haven't got a haircut in 6 months. I'm looking for the Pat Riley look, and he's an old Laker guy, so maybe that'll give me some brownie points with Neil. I'm almost there, man. I'm almost there.
Trust me.
You're going to need a little bit more gel, Richie. A little bit more gel you're going to need.
If I didn't put gel in my hair, it would have been like this. Like, it's everywhere. Like, I had to do this. It's my hair looks horrible without gel, so I just did it for you guys.
Well, hopefully we will get to see on the virtual dance party this Saturday. And please, those who don't know, you can go ahead and push your virtual dance party now, Richie. But Richie does host a very huge virtual dance party that is global, not even just people in Los Angeles. So go ahead now, Richie.
Yeah, man. I appreciate you bringing that up. We have, it's fun. I used to be a radio DJ back in the day before I got into coaching. And so now I'm just bringing it back in by doing a dirt dance party. And so we do it every Saturday, 8 to midnight Eastern. 8 to 9 is just a little happy hour. And both of you have been there, I believe, at happy hour.
Yep.
And then from 9 to midnight's the party. Now, last weekend we went over 2 hours because we had so many people there. They wanted to keep playing music. And I'll say this. Last week we had a lot of people asking for soca music. So I felt like I was, at the fish fry in Oystons. It was amazing. But hey, it's awesome. If you go to it, most people have Facebook. So facebook.com/virtual dance party. And we use the same link every week. We've been doing this since right when COVID hit. So around mid-March. And usually about every 2 Saturdays now. And it's fun. It's fun. By request, both of you have been on camera in there. Sometimes I embarrass you by spotlighting you while you're dancing. And maybe some others.
Well, Richie, thank you so very much for coming through. And we hopefully will have you back on, possibly in Barbados, if things, look a little bit different. We're rooting for you to get here. But thank you so much for joining us. ESPN college basketball analyst and basketball coach Richie Schueler. And guys, we'll be taking a very short break here, but stay with us. When we come back, all of the latest action. We'll be digging a bit deeper with the NBA playoffs. Of course, we'll also be looking at the early scenes in the NFL. So stay with us.